The first thing I noticed was the silence, an unnatural quiet that pressed against my ears like a warning. I had walked into our living room after a long day at work, expecting the hum of the dishwasher or the faint smell of dinner simmering, and instead, there was nothing. Just the faint echo of my own footsteps and the scent of her perfume lingering too sharply in the air. Something was off. "Hey!" I called out, trying to sound casual. No answer. My heart, which had been idly drumming after a tedious day, suddenly started racing. I stepped closer to the bedroom and froze. The door was ajar. I could see her silhouette on the bed, but it wasn't how she usually sat there reading or scrolling on her phone. She looked tense, distant. "Are you okay?" I asked, voice slightly trembling despite my best effort to stay calm. She looked up, and for a moment, her face softened. Then she said something that made the blood drain from my face. "We need to talk." I nodded, trying to force the smile I knew she hated. I had learned early in our marriage that false calm was dangerous. It invited suspicion. But the words she spoke next shattered every sense of balance I had clung to. "My therapist," she said I should open up our marriage. Just a little. To rediscover myself. I blinked. My brain scrambled to process the syllables, each one hitting like a hammer. Open up our marriage. Rediscover myself. You mean, what? I asked, my voice a whisper I barely recognized as mine. "Don't panic," she said, almost pleading. "It's just exploratory. I need to understand what I want. Who I am, outside of us." I sank onto the couch, feeling as if the room had dropped away from me. The carpet felt like it was moving under my legs, the air thick and wrong. My heart was pounding, and a cold dread slithered up my spine. I wanted to shout, to argue, to grab her, to fix this, but the words wouldn't come. Only the hum of disbelief vibrated through my chest. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was exaggerating. Maybe she meant something abstract. Therapy jargon made things sound more dramatic than they were. I kept reminding myself, we'd been through rough patches before. This was just a weird, stupid idea. But then the subtle signs started to pierce the fog. She stayed out later than usual. Phone calls she brushed off as work stuff became a frequent excuse. The way she laughed at messages I couldn't see made my stomach twist. I asked her about it, carefully, calmly, each time pretending not to notice the tiny betrayals. But deep down, I knew. I had been watching shadows flicker across the corners of our life, shadows I had chosen to ignore. The breaking point came one Friday night. I had promised myself I wouldn't check her phone. Trust was the cornerstone of everything we had built. But when she fell asleep early, exhausted from an errand, I found myself drawn to it like gravity. There were messages. Not flirtatious, not casual, urgent, intimate, and unmistakable. A man, a stranger, a ghost that had been walking in our home unnoticed. Her words, the laughter, the plans, they cut through me with surgical precision. Every line she had spoken about self-discovery suddenly had teeth. The betrayal wasn't abstract anymore, it was tangible. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I could only replay her face in my mind, the softness, the pleading, the casual tone that had disguised the truth. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to throw her out, scream, cry, hit, disappear. And yet, part of me, a part that loved her still, was terrified of losing what remained of us entirely. The confrontation was inevitable. I waited for her to come home, the room charged with unsaid words, with tension so thick I could cut it with a knife. When she walked in, the sight of her smiling face was unbearable. I held her gaze and simply asked, "Why?" She paused, eyes wide, and then sat beside me. There was shame there. Regret. Confusion. She spoke slowly, as if explaining a puzzle I could not solve. I felt lost. I felt like I didn't know who I was. And when she, the therapist, suggested it, I thought it would help me. Help us. But I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could manage it. Control it. Control. The word rang hollow in my ears. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to forgive her. But my body trembled, my mind screamed, and the betrayal had already carved its mark deep into my chest. I couldn't erase the late nights, the whispered messages, the hidden smiles at her phone. We talked for hours. Anger, sobs, pleading, confessions. My trust was gone, scattered in pieces across the floor of that living room. And yet, amidst the wreckage, a strange clarity emerged. Love alone could no longer sustain what had been broken. By morning, the house felt alien. Her side of the bed untouched, the air between us heavy. I realized some things couldn't be fixed by promises or apologies. Some betrayals linger, shadows that refuse to leave even when the guilty vanish. I left the bedroom, the kitchen, the life we had built together. I walked out into the cold dawn, each step a painful reminder that love sometimes isn't enough. That the people we think we know can hide entire worlds behind their eyes. That trust, once shattered, changes everything forever. And as I looked back at the house bathed in the pale light of morning, I felt a curious mixture of grief and liberation. The woman I had loved had betrayed me, not because she hated me, not because she didn't care, but because she was searching for something I could not give. And now I would search too. For myself. For someone who would never ask me to choose between my heart and my sanity. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, the weight of broken trust, or the emptiness of a love that couldn't survive its own secrets, subscribe to my channel. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support would mean the world, because sometimes, sharing these stories is the only way to heal.